As we've heard this morning, President Biden calling for unity last night in the wake of the assassination attempt of former President Trump. In an Oval Office address, Biden condemned political violence, saying politics must never become a literal battlefield. Joining us right now is Delaware Democratic Senator Chris Coons. He is the co-chair of the Biden presidential campaign. And Chris, we've heard the same thing from President Trump. It sounds like he may be rewriting his speech and calling for unity as well. If that's the case, would be something if this can really stick. What do you think in the wake of what happened? It was shocking to see former President Trump targeted in such a way, actually shot.
So, Becky, this is a moment for all of us to reflect on where we're headed as a nation. I am so grateful that former President Trump is safe, that our President Joe Biden dedicated an Oval Office address to denouncing political violence, urging that we reduce the tempo and the temperature of our speaking about each other in campaigns. And I'll remind you, it was Joe Biden in his inaugural address who said that we need to view our political opponents not as enemies, but as fellow Americans. I think it is a great blessing that we are in this place today, not waking up, confronting the horror of a successful assassination. And so I am grateful to the state troopers and the Secret Service who acted promptly, mourn the loss of a volunteer fire chief, a father of two who died protecting his family, Mr. Campore, I believe, of Western Pennsylvania. And the Senate Homeland Security Committee is going to promptly begin investigating the security failures that led to that attempt. It is shocking that a lone 20-year-old gunman with no clear agenda or purpose was able to scale a roof and take shots and kill someone and wound several others and very nearly kill former President Trump. So I'm grateful that President Biden sees this as a moment to reduce the temperature. And if at the RNC we hear a change in tone and a temperature from speakers, I think that would be a constructive thing, too. Becky, we've had too many close calls in the time that I've been in the Senate. I'll never forget Jeff Flake, my close friend, coming back into the Capitol in his blood-stained baseball uniform. I'll never forget the episode with Speaker Pelosi's husband being brutally attacked and hospitalized. And Gabby Giffords has been a dear friend since before the attack that left her permanently injured. But her bravery in recovering from the assassination attempt on her is something that's inspired many of us. We have had too many close calls, and I'm hopeful that we will pivot and move to a different kind of political tone in our nation today.
Steve Scalise actually shot in that baseball game that you referenced. Senator, I appreciate what you say about the message that President Biden has put out today, but while that may have been a message he originally used 4 years ago, it's one that the Democratic Party has strayed from as well. There has been a lot of rhetoric. There has been very hot sort of attacks on character that have come up. And I guess I wonder how much this new unity movement lasts, how long you expect to see that last, especially as we get into a very hot political election.
Well, that's up to us. Yesterday, I reached out to some of my colleagues with whom I've been active in the Senate prayer breakfast. We meet every Wednesday morning. It's facilitated by our Senate chaplain. When I first got to the Senate, there were 24 members who came faithfully every Wednesday. It is bipartisan. We represent the broadest range of backgrounds and views of members of the Senate. And it's how I've built some of my close friendships. And I do think we have an opportunity to not just briefly reflect a moment, but to try and serve as role models of how we can treat each other and respect each other in the Senate and how we conduct ourselves and how we speak about each other.
Senator, I've thought it was my thinking that the president has stabilized his status as the nominee. But Andrew makes some really good points about numbers. And I don't know whether it's fundraising or if it was, I don't know, Andrew, if it was poll numbers. There's still a convention coming up, and there are some attractive. Well, Andrew has some candidates that he thinks could maybe beat Donald Trump, I think.
Well, no, I think the question, Senator, is, look, the president has said repeatedly that the only reason he's in this race is because he genuinely believes he is the only person in this entire country who can beat former President Trump. If, in fact, the polls move away from Biden meaningfully, and I don't know what you think meaningfully is, but and I know they were tight as of last week. However, clearly Biden was still losing. I imagine this is going to change that dynamic to some degree. I don't know if you agree with that, but if it does, do you think that there is some shift inside the party that says that we should try some kind of other alternative? And I don't know if there is an other alternative, who you think that is.
Well, Andrew, thanks for the question. As you know, poll after poll, head-to-head, shows that this race has not moved and that there haven't been some significant shifts in the head-to-head polls. Part of what we've always expected this coming week is a bounce for former President Trump. That's part of why conventions have become sort of televised national platform moments for candidates. So if former President Trump, both as a result of sympathy after this shocking event in Butler, Pennsylvania, and as a result of a week-long opportunity to present his views and his platform, if he comes out of the convention in a stronger position, that's what we expected all along. The same should happen for the Democratic Party and for our nominee, Joe Biden. There are vigorous discussions within my caucus, but as of today, there's one Democratic senator who's come out and said he thinks that President Biden should step aside for another candidate. And I'll remind you, not to put too sharp a point on it, but there's 5 sitting Republican senators who've said, at least said as of last week, that they would not vote for Donald Trump. I do think that there's widespread unhappiness in the country about these 2 candidates. That's true. There's been polling that shows lots of folks would like someone else. But we had a robust primary process, and nobody else succeeded. Joe Biden won overwhelmingly. Right. We believe in democracy, and so we're going to a convention with virtually all of the delegates pledged to Joe Biden.